So hello, wherever you are in the world, either good morning, good evening, or whatever time of day it is for you. This is Tom Stone, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this first live online demo of Transform Your Anxiety into Serenity. And our volunteer for this session is Dezi Koster. I'll just bring up Dezi's picture so you can see her. There she is. Hello, Dezi. Welcome.
Hi, Tom.
And as you may be able to judge from the little bit she just spoke from her accent, she's originally from Australia. And so she has this lovely Australian accent. And Dezi actually is a good friend of mine. I've known her for several years, quite a few years actually. And she learned this work quite some time ago and has gotten pretty good at it. But you know, even though that's true, and there are many people like that, occasionally something is a little too tricky to get on your own. So Dezi, when I announced about the demos, Dezi wrote to me and said, I got this issue about anxiety, you know, could you help me out? So I said, sure, let's do it. So although she knows the techniques already, because there are going to be many people watching these videos who know nothing about this work and nothing about the pure awareness techniques, I'm going to treat her as if she's a new client, and because I want everybody who watches this to get a good orientation, thorough orientation to this work. That's one of the purposes of doing these online demos, is to educate people about the major breakthrough that this work is in being able to handle all kinds of not only emotional problems, but all kinds of problems. And so I'll be explaining a little bit to give an orientation. I'll be explaining and guiding her through the techniques, even though she knows how to do them already. And this will be for everyone's benefit, so everyone can learn from this. And actually a little refresher for Dezi anyway. So that's
always good thing.
Very good. So the first thing I'd like to do is to tell you that the way we always start these sessions is we use this system called intuition testing that I'll be using throughout the session. And intuition testing is a way of being able to amplify and make more obvious our intuitive knowing. Because the reality is actually everybody knows everything all the time in every moment. And this is because we have this amazing phenomena. I won't go into all the technical details, but there's something called neutrinos, which are the tiniest subatomic particles that exist so far that they've found. They're produced inside the stars, and they spew out in every direction. And in every single moment, millions of them are penetrating every square centimeter of our body. And the interesting thing about the neutrinos is that when they pass through something, they carry the information of that thing. They pick up the energy of that thing. They're so tiny that they don't bump into anything. They just pass through it. But they pick up the energy of something, and then the next thing they go through, some of that energy is transferred into that next thing. So in every single moment, we have these millions of neutrinos passing through us with all the information from everywhere in the whole universe. So we actually in every moment know everything. But the problem is that's not very useful. If you don't have a way of filtering out just the part of that information that you're interested in. So it turns out that we do have a way of doing that, okay? Because our mind doesn't experience what that information is. But as the neutrinos are passing through our body, we're getting all that information. But it's a little bit like if you had a radio in your car with no bandpass filter, no way to tune to a particular station, and you were getting all the stations at once. You wouldn't be able to understand anything. It'd be cacophony, right? It would just be total noise, okay? So the bandpass filter is the key to getting exactly the information that we want. Well, there's this wonderful simple technique of using the muscle's response to an inquiry or an intention to filter out just the information that we want to know. So, for example, if I have Dezi say, my name is Dezi, please say my name is Dezi.
My name is Dezi.
And I test with my muscle like this, I'm pushing this finger up against this one, and the response is strong. And the strong response we're using as an indicator that there's a coherence or a kind of match between what she's saying and what she experiences in her body. So this is a way of getting a kind of amplification or an intuitive read on um, what's really going on with Dezi. So for example, Dezi say, my name is Tom.
My name is Tom.
So I test that one, and obviously not. So the beauty of this technique is this allows us to guide the entire process of what we now call inner greatness optimizing, which is what this process, this new name used to be called human software engineering. We can guide the entire process of the session using this muscle testing to determine which way to go. Is this the correct direction, or no, this, go off on a wild goose chase? So there's actually only one rule in inner greatness optimizing, which is test everything. Okay? So we make a test, and you'll be seeing me do that, and I'll hold my hand up and show you so you can see the testing that I'm doing. And I'll describe everything that it is while I'm doing. Now, even while Dezi's doing one of the techniques and she has her eyes closed and she's sitting quietly doing that, from time to time, I'll be testing on her behalf because my system is getting all the information from her, of course, all the information from the other 7 billion people on the planet, but through the intention that I have to test just for Dezi only, this filters out all the other stations, all the other information from everybody else, and allows me to experience and amplify what's really going on inside of Dezi. Okay. So this is an amazing technique. It takes a little bit to learn it. It's, to learn it properly takes about a day to get it right, and then to remove any of the barriers to trusting yourself and trusting the process to make it reliable. But we have fabulous training in that. I have to say, I train people to do that better than anybody else on the planet. So I have thousands of people who've learned how to do this and do it reliably. So there are many people who teach it and don't teach it adequately, and so that ends up being, people don't get it, it doesn't work reliably, and they say, oh, it doesn't work, and then they don't use it. And that's unfortunate, but here in this work, we teach people to do it reliably, so that it's really something that becomes an incredibly valuable tool, because this allows us to make unconscious things conscious. Right? And this problem of things being unconscious is really at the heart of most of the problems that people have. And you'll see that as we go through. There's something in Dezi that she's not getting about herself.
I can feel it, but I can't find it.
That's it. That's it. So it's very likely that whatever it is that's blocking her and causing her to not be able to resolve this anxiety that she's been feeling, there's some unconscious way of operating that she's not recognizing, and therefore also not being able to resolve. So there's two parts to the process. One is we have to find what it is, which we use the muscle testing and a proper path of inquiry in order to find it. But the second thing is, once we do find it, then we have these lovely, wonderful, precious, pure awareness techniques, which are new insights, based on new insights, simple ones, about how to resolve and actually completely dissolve and eliminate, neutralize the energy that's at the basis of that, what it is that's the unconscious thoughts that are causing the problem. So we're going to be using the muscle testing, and the place that we start with the muscle testing is something called the Where to Start chart. And the Where to Start chart, I'm not going to bother to do screen sharing and bring it up because it's too simple. Okay? It has 5 different levels to it. The first one is level of awareness or consciousness, which is where the pure awareness techniques work, where our whole process really works. Okay? And this is the level where we have thoughts, feelings, perceptions. This is all the things that are just at the level we could say vibrating awareness or vibrating consciousness. The second level is an energetic level, and we have a separate technology for that, which we use when we're working in person with someone. And we have a new version of that called the Quantum Energy Optimizer, and sometime I'll give a webinar about that. It's an incredible, fascinating device for getting rid of chronic pain, allergies, ADD, cell phone radiation stress, all kinds of stuff. We'll deal with that another time. Oh, air pollution. It's great for solving the symptoms of air pollution. It's amazing. Anyway, another time for that one. But it's also, the third level is what's called chemical level. This is obviously diet, nutrition, toxins, vitamins, minerals, all that kind of stuff. The fourth level is the physical level. This is when the problem needs to be addressed or solved at the level of, surgery or chiropractic adjustment, or rinsing out your nose with a neti pot, or taking a shower, walk, exercise, something like that. There's all the physical stuff. And then the fifth level is what's called the environmental level. And this is the level where there are other kinds of techniques for being able to resolve the returning influence of our past actions. You could think of this level as the third law of motion, which is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when we take an action, there's going to be some consequences to that action that's going to come back to us. This is just basically a law of physics. And people who know physics don't think like that, but that's okay. We know better. So I'm going to start by using the muscle testing to make sure that we're not starting in the wrong place, because millions of times a day, people are going to somebody who has a particular training, a particular range of skills and techniques and work that they do for helping people. And because people don't start with this where to start chart, they very often go to somebody and it's not the right methodology, it's not the right level at which to solve that problem. And so you've probably had the experience, I'm sure you've had the experience. You go to somebody and you have sessions and it doesn't work. And the reason is because you're not approaching the problem where it truly lives, where the solution truly lives, okay? So we have this wonderful, simple method of avoiding that problem. And because of that, we get an extremely high success rate because we're starting in the right place. We're going down the right path. So I'm going to start with that and show you how that works. I'm going to muscle test on Dezi's behalf, if that's okay with you, which I'm sure it is.
Yes.
So just her permission and my intention. Now what's happening is I'm filtering out all those gazillions of neutrino streams, not letting those through the amplifier. The amplifier is the muscle test, right? And the bandpass filter is my intention, okay, and her permission. So on Dezi's behalf, we're going to test from the where to start chart. This problem of anxiety that Dezi has, our solution to that is 100% at the awareness consciousness level. Yes, it is. Okay. There's some contribution that would help for resolving this at one of the other 4 levels. No. Okay. Now, what I just did is called cross-testing. I tested one way, then I rephrased the statement and tested the other way. And when you do the cross-testing in this work, it just kind of helps to obliterate any doubts that you might have, because you get a different response but the same information. Okay, so we know we're going to use the right techniques. Now, the next thing we're going to do is to make sure that this is the optimal issue for this demonstration session. It is. Yes, it is. There's an even more important, higher priority, better topic to work on with Dezi today. No, so this is great. We know that, first of all, we have the right level we're going to approach the problem at, and we have the right issue to work on. Okay, this is kind of like a really solid foundation for making sure that we're going to have a successful result. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to help Dezi to clarify her intention. So we're going to now have a little bit of interaction. She's going to explain to us what's going on, what the problem is, and then we're going to clarify, okay, we know how it is, but how do we want it to be? What's the new reality we'd like to step into, okay? And so we're going to clarify that, and then we're going to check to see whether she's coherent with that, congruent with that, okay? Whether she's resonating with that or not. And clearly she's not, or she wouldn't even need to.
I wouldn't be here.
Exactly. So let's start with that. Dezi, please explain to us a little bit about what's going on.
So with the company that I've been working at, I greatly admire and respect my boss, the CEO, and also the, I'm not going to go into names or anything, but, just the gentleman that I work with. However, I often feel that I am incongruent with them, the way they're going, And so there can be a lot of clashing.
Hmm.
And to me, it's not, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I totally accept my level of responsibility in it. But there are some things that I don't know, I'm just, either I'm not getting, I'm missing. And often when there is, when there is this kind of charge of energy between them and me, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And again, I appreciate that, if I'm not responding exactly, then I appreciate that something's my responsibility. At the same time, I have this strong feeling that I'm not fully showing up as me. I'm kind of out of integrity of who I am. And so there is this, I don't know, I don't know, I do know. So there's this anxiety. And sometimes, I'm told, we're going to be firing you and all kinds of different things. And that's very stressful for me.
Sure, that would be anxiety producing for anybody. Sure.
That's, and I often find that the more that I attempt to do what they want or, fulfill their needs, it seems to be worse. And so that's kind of what's going on in a nutshell. And in the last, I mean, I actually thought I was going to be gone from there, except I'm still here. And so a couple of things. One is, in the last week, I've been running content because I'm starting my own business. I'm going to be getting my own website. So I've had the opportunity to just step out of everything, spend a lot of time in that kind of pure awareness, in that divine. And I can feel that that's aligned with me. At the same time, like right here in the center of my chest is this massive stuff and this stuckness. And there's definitely a disconnect. I'm not exactly sure where it is. I can feel it. I can sense it.
Yeah.
But I don't quite know how to access it.
Okay. This feeling that you're having in your chest, is this directly associated with the anxious feeling?
It feels like it is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Very good. Okay. So I've got enough information to move forward. Yes. You see how I test everything, right? We need to talk about it more? No. Okay. All right. So the thing that's important to understand in this context, and this is for virtually every problem that people have, is that one of the most common fundamental challenges that people have is that in every situation in life, there are always two basic things. And those two basic things are the circumstances, okay? And the other part is our reaction to the circumstances. Okay? Now, for most people, the circumstances and the reaction are so intertwined, they're so tied together, that it's very difficult to separate them and resolve the reaction, okay? Because the circumstances are there, they're just there. Sometimes we can do something about them, sometimes we can't, okay? But the reaction is something that's happening inside of us that actually can be made independent of the circumstances. And the way we do that is to look at one other important distinction, and that is every emotional experience, and you're having this experience of feeling stuck and anxious and so on, every experience has two aspects to it also, and that is it has the content, which is really about the circumstances, right? It's the why and what's happening and what we call it and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the reaction itself, but the essence of the reaction is not the content. The essence of the reaction is the energy which produces the sensation that you were talking about in your body, okay? And that energy, that pattern of energy, is in some way the basis of some kind of disruptive emotion. Now, it could be traumatic, or it could be the projection of a possible negative outcome onto the future, which would produce, anxiety, like what you're talking about. And many times there are both kinds of energy present. So we're going to be using the muscle testing. Once we clarify your intention, we're going to be using the muscle testing to determine what kinds of patterns of energy are underneath this problem at its real causal basis, the true cause of the problem. Then we're going to identify them. And sometimes we have to use another one of our techniques called the locate technique, which we use to locate where the energy is. And again, we use the muscle testing for that because the body knows where it is, right? Mind doesn't necessarily know, but the body knows. The reason we don't use the mind is so often we're guessing and we'll go down the wrong path. And the mind can lie, it can be so influenced by somebody's training or conditioning or their own traumas, whatever. But the body doesn't lie. The body will give us reliable information if we make the proper inquiries. So that's why we do it. And this sets apart what we do from pretty much all other forms of like coaching or therapy. One thing I wanted to point out, this is not therapy. It's not traditional coaching either. Okay? But it's not therapy. This is training. This is training people in how to access and resolve and utilize their very much underutilized natural capacity to feel things and resolve them within themselves. Now, people have the capacity, but they don't know how to do it. And the reason for this is that when we're little, we all get emotionally overwhelmed many, many, many times. Nobody likes it. Everybody hates it, in fact. And everybody rapidly learns to suppress their emotions in an attempt to not get emotionally overwhelmed, right? So when we do that, this is a setup for becoming actually really lousy at handling emotions. And so we live on a planet of people. Everybody gets this conditioning, actually pre-verbally. We get it when we're very, very little. And everyone has the habit of either suppressing their emotions or getting overwhelmed by them and crying. Right? And unfortunately, neither of these processes work to resolve the problem. You can suppress it or cry, 50 times, and you still have the problem. Okay. So fortunately, we have methods for now being able to add a whole new dimension to this picture, which is to be able to identify the energy, and then what we call the pure awareness techniques, we resolve the energy so that the energy is actually really gone, not just swept under the rug, but really gone. Okay, so our next process then is to separate the reaction from the circumstances, and part of that process is to clarify how we want things to be. What's the new picture we want to step into? What's the new reality we'd like to have? So please, Dezi, say a little bit about that. How would you like things to be?
So whatever the outcome is, whether I stay there or not, and I have a strong sense that I'm not going to be there for a lot longer. It could be a month, 2 months, but that there's no fear about the future. It is that I know that I'm supported by the divine. I know that I'm supported by this pure awareness, and whatever is needed will simply show up for me, so that there is not the fear there. There's not the anxiety, and I don't feel crippled about, shall I go this way, or not second guess myself, but stand in that power, that invincibility that I know is inside of me. I mean, I can sense that's there, but at the moment I'm battling back and forth.
I got it. So it sounds like what you're talking about is that the anxiety to a certain extent is coming from a desire to know what's going to happen, and you're actually in a state of uncertainty.
Yes.
And this is extremely common, that people are afraid of uncertainty. They have a great discomfort with uncertainty because, we want to know like ahead of time. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the universe doesn't necessarily work that way.
It is not.
We don't necessarily know ahead of time. In fact, we tend to get the autoresponder from the cosmic email system right in the moment when we need the information and not a moment sooner. And so a lot of the time we end up spending in a state of uncertainty. And for most people, uncertainty has a bad rap. It has a bad reputation because in the past, things have happened to us that came out of the blue that we weren't expecting. And, something negative or painful or something like that happened. And it doesn't take too many of those kind of experiences to start to have a kind of anticipation that that kind of problem could happen again. And so most people are actually quite uncomfortable with uncertainty. So one of the things we're going to do is to make sure that you can stand in or be in a state of uncertainty and be completely okay with it.
Yeah.
And this is really good. This is very often one of the things that's at the true basis of anxiety. Okay? And the way we're going to do that is we're going to resolve the energy of the unresolved energy patterns that are still held in your body, that are the residue. I like to call it the residue. This is the residue of the things that happened in the past that were too much to process in the moment that they happened. And so you kind of archive them, like you held them in your body, probably right in that place that you were mentioning. You can actually feel it, okay? And, okay, I'll deal with it next week, or maybe next year, or maybe never if I can get away with it.
It's lifetime.
Exactly. So it's extremely common that people will, this is like the standard thing, that people are going to put it off because nobody likes that 3-year-old inside of you is terrified of being emotionally overwhelmed. And so it doesn't want to experience that. So this is why we put it off and we put it off and we put it off. And this is the fundamental basis of the biggest epidemic in the world, which is the emotional incompetence that's pervasive, right? Pretty much everybody is emotionally incompetent. Okay. So if we could describe your intention of the new reality that you want to step into, given what we just talked about, how would you describe what it would be like living in that new reality?
It would be absolutely enjoying the uncertainty, because to have wonder about, it doesn't matter that I don't know. Whatever is needed is just going to unfold, and I don't have to worry. Everything is taken care of.
Fabulous. This is perfect. So if we could encapsulate that into one simple statement, maybe I'll suggest something. We could just say, I live in the wonder and delight of uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly. I live in the wonder and delight of it. And I can feel it. It's just like, like when you get that electricity in your body, that's what it feels like. It feels perfect.
So let's do a little testing. This intention is the optimal intention for this particular topic and session for Dezi. Yes, it is. It could be even better. No, fabulous. Okay, so now we've determined that this is at the consciousness level. The problem is existing completely there, so it's appropriate to use this methodology. We've determined that this is the optimal issue, and now we've just clarified your intention. Okay, so I'd like you to say the intention, and then you saying it. Okay, well, I'm going to test to see whether you're congruent with it or whether there's a discrepancy between what you're saying and what's going on, what you're actually experiencing through the experiential wisdom from your body. So go ahead and please say, I live in the wonder and delight of uncertainty.
I live in the wonder and delight of uncertainty.
And you're not congruent with that.
Not yet.
Now, of course, we knew that, but now we know that your body knows that. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is very good. So now, the next step in our process is to determine how many barriers there are to
Many barriers.
how many barriers there are to actually being able to step into this new reality. Okay. Now, we have in this inner greatness optimizing process two different kinds of emotional energy. They're the emotional energies that are created, that are at the basis of our ego-based thoughts. And those energies have a very interesting structure. They sort of radiate out, the energy radiates out into the space around you and creates a kind of cloud or aura of energy. And the problem is you're inside the cloud. And so you look out through that energy. It's sort of like having dark glasses on. It kind of colors everything that you're experiencing. And some of this is going on for Dezi. Yeah, some of that's going on. Okay. These energies, we call them out technique energies because we use one of the pure awareness techniques is called the out technique. We used to call it the C technique in our older human software engineering language, but we've updated it primarily to make it simpler for translation because I'm in China at the moment, actually. I've been in China for a few years now and teaching here, and we found that the human software engineering language was okay, but a little difficult to translate into Chinese, okay, to make it easy. So you had to explain a lot. So we simplified it, and we have two techniques, one for resolving the internal stored more traumatic energies I was talking about earlier. That technique is called the in technique. And the other one is for these clouds of energy that we kind of live inside of. And I'm going to show you how to do it so everyone can learn, understand. You get outside that cloud of energy. It brings you into that state of pure awareness, which you're very familiar with. But it brings you into that state, and gradually the energy cloud diminishes and disappears, and I'll be giving the details of walking you through that. So I'm going to test now to see how many in and or out technique energies there are at the basis of your issue. I'm also going to test to see if we need to know what they are. Okay? So in this case, we need to know what they are, yes. And we'll start with the in technique energies. Yes, there's one, two, there's two of them. There's two in technique energies. And these are, to find out what they are now, these are from some traumatic experiences in the past where something happened out of the blue, you didn't expect it at all, you got blindsided, and it was painful, and that traumatic energy is still stored in Dezi's body in some way. Yes, and this is true for both of the energies that we need to access and resolve through this process. Yes, okay, very good. There's also some out technique energies present. Yes, there's one out technique energy. Okay.
Oh, so it's about only three.
only three. That's fine. So yeah. This is also great because people are going to get to see both techniques, okay? Yeah. And that'll be nice for the demonstration. Thank you, by the way, for volunteering for that.
Oh, I am so grateful that you were willing to do it. It's fine because, you know, I could feel it, and it was just like, Tom can help me.
Okay, so so this one out technique energy, we need to know a little bit more about it. Yes, okay. Typically, these out technique energies are one of two possible subcategories, and that is, and we call these reactive emotions because the emotional energy is reactive. Feels very, very different than the in technique energies, which are very localized, very sort of tight knot or ball stored in the body someplace. Okay, so the two subcategories are, we're either having an upset over something not happening the way we had hoped it would. Okay, we call that an expectation, right? If we have an unmet expectation, what do people typically do? They get upset in some way. They get angry, disappointed, that kind of thing. This is the issue for Dezi? No, okay? The other subcategory is the projection of a possible negative outcome onto the future. And this is Of course, everybody just learns how to do this growing up in a world where everybody does this around them. So this is a kind of conditioned reaction, conditioned response. And we develop the habit and we don't even realize that we're doing it. We're projecting a possible negative outcome onto the future, that something's going to happen like what happened before, the traumatic thing that happened before. No, I don't want that, okay? So then we become afraid that that's going to happen. Now, the interesting thing about this is not actually real. This is something completely made up in the mind. Now, there's a real basis for why we make it up in the mind, and that's that we had the traumatic experiences in the past that caused the problem. Okay? But the reality is that there isn't something like that coming. Right? There's something like that coming in Dezi's near or even long-term future. No, there's nothing like that. Okay, nothing like that happening. I was watching a brief video recently of Deepak Chopra and David Hawkins and a bunch of psychological experts talking about the ego and how incredibly insidious it is. Oh. And they were saying that the problem with the ego is it hides in the last place you would ever look for it, which is it hides within itself, okay? Yes. And it makes you think that the ego's thoughts are your thoughts. Okay? But the ego-based thoughts, which is what this projection of a possible negative outcome onto the future, this is what you think you know is going to happen. But that thinking you know is not a perception of a reality. It's a projection. It's like a fantasy. It's like a
illusion or delusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're going to deal with that. So we're going to deal with all three of this: 2 in-technique energies, 2 traumatic ones, and 1 out-technique energy. This is a reactive emotion, which is the projection of the possible negative outcome onto the future. And so these 3 things are the energetic basis of Dezi's anxiety. Yes. Okay. There's something more to it than that. No. Okay. Now you notice the cross-testing again. This gives us a complete confidence that we're on the right track. We've now identified what has to be done. All we have to do now is to use the techniques, find the energy in the body, which is not difficult. And even when it's so suppressed that we can't find it, we have a special technique for that called the locate technique. Okay? So we've got methods of dealing with all of this. Okay. All right, so it's appropriate for us to now use the techniques, resolve them, and then recheck for Dezi's congruence with being able to step into the reality of her intention to live in the wonder and delight of uncertainty. This is our protocol. Yes. There's an even better way to proceed? No. Okay? Very good. So optimal for us to start with the in-technique energies. Yes. Okay, this feeling that Dezi was talking about in her chest, this is the origin point. This is the place where at least one of these in-technique energies is located. Yeah, so you already know where it is. Okay?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is I'm going to guide Dezi through that process of resolving this. I'm going to give her, even though she knows how to do it, I'm going to walk her through each of the steps of the in technique for resolving the first of these traumatic energies that she's storing in her body. Okay, ready for that? Now, This is easiest done with the eyes closed, so she's going to be sitting with her eyes closed for a while, and there'll be a waiting period depending on how much energy is there. And what we're going to do is we're going to guide her through a process of completing the incomplete experience of the traumatic energy pattern that's at the basis of this feeling. And so we'll go ahead and start now. More explanation is needed before we start? No, we're ready to go. Yeah, okay. Test everything. Okay, so Dezi, please close your eyes. And the first thing we need to do is to simply decide that when you access the sensation of this energy in your body, that you're going to allow yourself to feel it. And it's going to be safe to do that, so you can make this decision, because I'm going to guide you into experiencing it in a new way, not getting overwhelmed by it, not suppressing it, but doing something in a new way that actually allows you to gradually complete the experience of the energy that was too much to complete when it actually happened, whenever that was in the past. And we don't need to know. We need to know? No. Or go ahead. Okay. So now you already know where the energy is. If you just put your attention there, you can probably feel there's a kind of tightness, a sort of constricted feeling. Yep.
Yeah.
This is the energy we're after. Yes. Now, you'll notice if you allow yourself to feel it, that there's a field of energy there. It's not just a point, it's kind of a field. And in the field, there's an area where the energy feels more concentrated, more condensed, more intense than elsewhere. It's typically right in the center. And if you, yeah, okay, so you can feel that. Now, the most efficient way to gradually reduce the incomplete experience that's held there is to put your attention right into the center of the most intense part of the energy, the strongest part of it. Now, the 3-year-old inside of us thinks this is not a good idea. But who you really are, and with the understanding and preparation of the orientation I've given you, I can guarantee you that this is completely safe. So go ahead and allow yourself to notice the central, strongest part of the energy right in the middle. Is that possible? Yeah. Now, you'll notice that when you let yourself do this, it's a little bit more intense than normal because you're allowing yourself to feel something that, you know, pretty much your whole life you try to avoid feeling these kinds of things because we got overwhelmed by them when we were little and we don't, you know, we're sort of terrified of getting overwhelmed. But you'll notice as you start to do this, that the first thing is it doesn't kill you to do it. It's not so difficult. Yeah. It's, in fact, it's just a sensation. And when we focus on just a sensation, what we're doing now is we're really separating the reaction from the circumstances. We're separating the energy from the content, and we're focusing on resolving the energy. Why are we doing that? Because it's the energy that's giving life to the problem. Okay. So I'm going to be quiet now for a little bit and let you just focus right into the center of that energy. I will say a few more things for people's benefit of learning. When Dezi does this, at first the energy will seem more intense than usual, and the intensity level may stay more or less the same for a little while. But if she's just gently noticing the central strongest part of the energy, the process of the completion of the energy is beginning. And as long as she doesn't try to force it to go away, which would be going back to the suppression model of conditioning we've had all our life, as long as she doesn't try to do anything to it, doesn't try to suppress it or anything like that, if she just stays focused right into the center of the strongest part of the energy, gradually it will start to diminish and become less. And when that happens, Dezi, just give a nod to let me know that that's happening.
Yeah, it's
starting to get a little softer. Excellent. Okay. Now, when it gets softer, we can do something a little bit like being on Google Maps and clicking in for a magnified or closer view. Can bring your awareness a little bit closer to the remaining sensation of the energy. And you do that by just intending to do it and doing it. You just bring your awareness closer to it. Now, you only get so close as to be able to really feel that central strongest part again, but not so close that it's overwhelming. So that's possible, right? Okay, so now the intensity level seems stronger. It's not stronger, it's just stronger because we're closer to it. It didn't get stronger, we got closer to it, so it just seems stronger. Okay? And again, we focus right into the center of the strongest part of the energy. Again, not trying to make it go away, not try to change it or do anything to it, but just noticing it. And the just noticing it with our awareness, pardon me, is is the process that allows the experience of the incomplete energy that's held there to gradually get completed. And so again, after doing it for a little while, the energy will become somewhat less again. And so again, you can let me know that that's happening by just nodding. That's happening again. So again, we get closer. This will make it seem stronger again. And we just keep repeating this process of the energy softening or getting closer to it. Softens again, you immediately get closer to it again. This will tend to keep the subjective experience of the intensity level fairly high, and we want that because we want to be close enough that we can be in the process of completing it just through experiencing it, not so close that it's overwhelming. So continue with that process, Dezi, getting closer and closer, and it'll get softer and softer. Nice sigh. This is a good indication of the reduction of the intensity. When this will happen a lot when people are doing this, there'll be a kind of a sigh. It's part of the energy releasing. Now, right before the energy is gone, the experience will start to change.
Mm.
And what'll happen right at the end is it'll feel like the energy is kind of dissipating, dissolving. It's a little bit like an analogy would be like the fog burning off in the morning sun. It's just sort of vanishing, just disappearing. And at the very end, it sort of all sort of dissipates, dissolves, vanishes. And you're back in that quietness, the quietness of your own awareness that's the background in which this whole experience has been happening. This is a good sign.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Ah,
Tell us what just happened.
it was kind of dissolved. I mean, I had this like sensation as I was going down, this tightness, almost like, oh my God, it's feeling like I've never had a heart attack, but just this constriction.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. Feels a lot better, huh?
It's like I can breathe easily. It's more, there's
Excellent.
more space and movement there.
Wonderful. This is really good. So this first of the in-technique energies is now completely resolved. Yes. Okay. There's still some more of it hidden somewhere in the body we have to go look for. No, that's very good. That one's handled. Great. So now optimal to go for the second in-technique energy. Yes. Very good. All right. So now you may or may not have a sense of where this second
Yeah.
you have a sense of where it is? It's completely fine if you don't.
Yeah, I'm not, I can feel a little something here in my throat, like
This,
here on the side,
yeah,
but I don't know if that's
let's just test. This is where the second energy is. Yeah, you already feel it. Okay, that's it.
okay.
Okay, it's not as big and intense as the previous one.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, so notice that area, and we're going to do exactly the same thing we just did. Bring your awareness close enough to it that you can really feel the central, strongest area very clearly. Not so close that it's overwhelming, but just close enough to be able to really experience it. And just notice the central, strongest part. That's where the essence of the energy lives. We don't have to feel the entire field of the emotion. We just have to feel the essence of it. It's kind of like the fountainhead or the origin of where the energy is radiating out from in our body. So go ahead and allow yourself to feel the central, strongest part and do just what we did before. Yeah, already a little bit of a sigh. Already it's reducing a little bit in intensity, yes?
Mm.
Yeah, okay. So as it does, again, do that Google Maps thing, click in for a closer view. Bring your awareness as close to it as you can reasonably without it being overwhelming, but close enough that you can really feel it. Again, put your attention right into the center of the strongest part of the energy field, right in the center. And again, it will soften some more. When it does, click in closer and just keep doing that until, again, the energy is completely gone. It's appropriate to ask, yes. How's it going?
Good. It's definitely a lot softer.
Okay, so one of the things that's important when you're doing the in technique is to not stop when it's just better but not completely gone. You want to keep going until all the energy is completely gone and you're back into that state of quietness, which is actually your awareness without the presence of the energy anymore. This is why we call it the pure awareness techniques, because at the end of each technique, you end up in the experience of your own awareness. So we just keep going until it's complete. Desi's doing it perfectly. Yes. You need some more guidance at the moment. No. Very good. Just keep doing what you're doing. I get the sense that you're kind of scanning around to see if there's anything left. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. It feels like it's pretty much
Yeah.
gone.
This energy is now completely resolved. Yes, it is. Very good. There's still some more of it left somewhere inside we need to find. No. Good job, girl.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna turn something off here. It it just it's like there's so much more space and less restriction.
Yeah, yeah. Probably feel a lot lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. Okay, so all of the in technique energies, traumatic energies that have been contributing to and sort of were at the basis of this anxious feeling, these are all now completely resolved. Yes. Okay.
Wow.
Still some more.
Yay.
It's great. Okay, there's still some more of them that are hidden or masked in some way that we need to dig deeper and uncover. No, excellent. Very good. Your body knows. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so there's still this out technique energy, which is coming from this projection of the possible negative outcome onto the future, this causing this sense of, this is kind of the outer expression, you could say, of this fear of uncertainty, okay? It's like, you know, causing a kind of habit of creating these kind of projections, right? So we want to resolve this energy, and this is an out technique energy, yeah. Okay, so you up for it? We're going to go for this. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Very good.
Wow, this feels so good. Oh,
Well, good, good. Well, we're coming into the home stretch here. Okay. So you'll see as we do this that the out technique energies are quite different than the in technique energies. Fortunately, there are only two categories, the in and out technique. Now, unfortunately, everybody has lots of them, okay? But we've identified and are resolving the specific ones that are related to your intention for resolving the anxiety and being able to step into this new reality of living in the wonder and delight of uncertainty. So now we're going to do the out technique energy. And this one, the way this one works, I'm just going to describe it first and then we'll do it. Okay. The description, you know, you already know how to do this, but for the sake of the people who are watching who don't, I'm going to give the explanation first. So when we have an out technique energy, the out technique energy is created by having an emotional reaction to a story that we have going on in our mind about something that's not actually real, that's an illusion. Right? But the reaction to the story is coming because we start to believe the lie that we're telling to ourselves. Okay? We start to believe that, in fact, something bad could happen. Okay? And so we start to fear the possibility of that bad thing actually happening. Okay? In this case, it doesn't have a specific content to it. It's just this fear that I'm uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen, and it could be bad. Okay?
It's enough.
You get this, right? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the quietness using what we call the quietness technique, which I'll guide you through. It's very simple. And once we're in the quietness, we're going to just see if we already sense this cloud of energy that radiates out from the body and surrounds us. If we don't, we'll use what's called the locate technique and tell the body to show it to us. And when we're in that state of the quietness and we do that, the body has to show it to us, and it does, and then we'll experience it. So either way, whether you notice it immediately or not, it's fine, we can find it. Now, once we find it, the instruction's going to be very simple, and that is we just go see how big the cloud of energy is. Because it's not filling up the entire universe. It's just a sort of field around you. Sometimes they're quite big. I mean, sometimes they're bigger than the planet, but but sometimes, whatever size they are, it doesn't matter. We just go outside the field of energy, which I'll show you how to do. Once we cross over the outer boundary of the energy into the surrounding quietness, what happens is we are back in the same lovely state that you're just experiencing now. We're in the quietness of our own awareness. And the moment we cross over the outer boundary of the out technique energy, we're coming out of seeing through it, like it's like taking the dark glasses off. All of a sudden, we see things as they really are. And the energy can't maintain its integrity of seeming real. And it starts to shrink and fade away. And so it gets smaller and smaller, it shrinks away. And we can see then that we can see much more clearly, because now we have a whole different frame of reference. We can see very clearly that, oh, I'm having a reaction to a story I'm making up in my mind. And that story is some form of a projection of a possible negative outcome onto the future. And it becomes possible now that we're outside the field, it becomes possible to really question whether keeping this story present in your mind is really a good idea or not. Okay? Now, we're only doing it because we have a habit, actually bad habit, of projecting these possible negative outcomes onto the future, not even realizing that we're doing that. Okay? So this is a process of making the unconscious conscious. We're becoming conscious that we're doing that, and we become conscious of it when we get outside the field. It's very You'll experience it. You have experienced it before, so you know. But people who haven't, it's amazing when you get outside the field, all of a sudden the whole perspective changes. You see the thing in a whole new light. The energy starts to shrink and fade away. You can see the story at the basis of the reaction. This is why we call it a reactive emotion. Okay? And when you can see the story, we then really challenge whether there's any value or usefulness in continuing to allow that story to be in your awareness or not. Now, of course, there isn't, okay? But by really questioning it, is it helping you to avoid having some negative experience in the future, to have this story in your mind? Well, no, okay? So we question it, and you really become aware of how not only useless, but actually energy draining and damaging it is to continue to allow this story to be in your awareness. And you become sort of empowered from that, and it allows you to really be at choice about whether you allow that story to continue to be present in your awareness or not. And so you just choose not to allow it to be present. And in that moment, the rest of the energy and the story collapse back into the nothingness out of which you created them in the first place, and they're gone. And the nice thing is that you have this awareness and recognition now. You're much more conscious of that process, and there's no way you would bring it back. And so this tends to be very permanent. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have more out technique energies in you and more projections of other kinds of negative outcomes into the future. So you have to, you have to clean up your inner emotional landscape by doing a lot of this. But at least that one's gone, and when it's gone, it's permanently gone. It's not just suppressed. Okay. All right, very good. So let's go through it now. There's more explanation needed. No, we're ready to start. Very good. Okay, so again, close your eyes. And you may already be able to sense this cloud or field of energy that's surrounding and engulfing you, or not. Okay? It's subtler. It's not as visceral. It's not as intense and constricted as the in-technique energies. It's kind of a softer, just sort of aura or cloud of energy. Can you feel it already? Okay, great. So we don't need to use the locate technique. We'll learn that another time. So the instruction now is very simple, and that is to just allow yourself to notice how big this cloud or field of energy is. And the way we do that is also very simple. We just let your awareness move out into the space around you further and further. And you just keep going. We're looking for the place where the energy sort of fades off into the surrounding quietness. There's not usually a kind of hard edge like a bubble. It's usually more just kind of fades off into the quietness. And we're interested in that quietness. Now, normally we're not interested in it because there's nothing there, and we're into having experiences, right? But today, and in this moment, we're very interested in finding that quietness because that's your awareness. And when we find it, it'll mean that we're getting outside of the field of energy that's been trapping you in this fear of uncertainty. So when you find the quietness, give an indication by just nodding to let me know. Okay, so the next step is we want to go a little bit deeper into the quietness, a little bit further away from the cloud of energy. And the purpose of doing this is to make the distinction between the energy and the quietness even more clear. And it's easy to do. You just notice the area of the quietness that's a little bit further away. Got that? Okay, so now the next step is to go much, much deeper into the quietness, quite far away from the energy cloud. Just go really far away. And what you'll notice is there's no limit to how far away you could go. There's no boundary or barrier or anything like that. And take a few moments to allow yourself to notice how simply vast and limitless the quietness is. Just goes on forever. Yeah. Can you sense that?
Wonderful.
Kind of a nice place to hang out. Indeed. Very good. So now, as you look back at the cloud of energy that you were just inside of moments ago, what's happening to it?
It's kind of shrinking and getting dark.
There you go. So this is exactly right. The shrinking is because it can't maintain the illusion of seeming real now because you're experiencing the reality of the essence of what you truly are, which is your own awareness. And when you're experiencing the essence of what you are as awareness, the energy just starts to shrink and fade away. And now it becomes possible to really clearly see that this energy is there as a reaction to a story that you have running in your mind of, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Something bad might happen, right? Yeah. And it doesn't take much. I can see you're already kind of there. It doesn't take much to realize that this story is actually ridiculous. Yeah, totally ridiculous because it's not a perception of something that is, or even that is coming. You know, fear of things that are real are very useful. I mean, if we're about to step out in the street and one of these new electric cars is coming, we don't hear it. Yeah, you know, and we see it at just the last minute, and they jump back. You know, that's useful fear. Okay, but this fear is not the fear of something that we're perceiving that's real. This is a projection in the mind. This is what we call an ego-based thought, and this is something we're making up. And now, from out in the clarity of pure awareness, you can see that. Yeah. So typically what we do is to challenge the usefulness and validity and value of this story with a few questions. So the question is keeping this story in your mind actually something that's truly preventing some negative thing from happening in the future? No, absolutely not. And so is it helping you have the life that you want to keep this in your awareness? Absolutely not. Yeah. And so is it a good use of your life energy to allow this story to continue to be present in your awareness?
Not at all.
Not at all. And the last question is, do you feel a sense of choice or empowerment about whether you keep this story and allow it to continue to be in your awareness or not?
Yeah, it's like gone.
Yeah, it's already gone. Very good. So to make the decision to not allow it to occupy your awareness anymore, and therefore, if there's no story, there's no possibility of a reaction, because the reaction was a reaction to the presence of the story, right? So now you'll notice that the moment you make that decision, the energy, any remaining energy of the cloud and the story both collapse back into the nothingness out of which you created them in the first place. And then again, you'll find yourself in this quiet state of the pure awareness being much more present and pervasive, and no anxious energy present anymore. Okay, when the energy feels like it's all gone, you can open your eyes. Very good.
Wow.
So this out technique energy is now completely resolved. Yes. There's still some more of it, or some backup copy, or something we need to go identify. No. Okay, so all of the energy is contributing to this previous inability to just be living in the wonder and delight of uncertainty. These are all completely resolved now. Yes. Okay. So it's appropriate for us to have Dezi state her intention again and recheck whether she's congruent with it or not. Yes, that's the next step. So please, Dezi, please say, I live in the wonder and delight of uncertainty.
I live in the wonder and delight of uncertainty.
Okay, and you're now congruent with that. And you know,
that was fantastic.
yeah, and you can feel it, okay? You can feel the difference is quite substantial. We could hear it in your voice. I mean, the whole confidence and quality of the way you said it, there was, you know, I could hear the resonance. So
and
now,
this constriction is just like, it almost, you know, after it was all gone, it was like, oh my God, it was here and it was here. It was in my head. It was like everywhere.
Yeah, all of this presence of the energy is due to this lifelong habit of suppression of our emotions, which we developed before we even developed the ability to talk. It's called pre-verbal conditioning, right? We call it resisting feeling things fully, or the habit of suppression and avoidance. Right? This is at the basis of people's inability to resolve trauma. It's at the basis of people's inability to get out of their addictions. And this is what causes people to grieve for years, months and years, and not be able to resolve it. By the way, the next live demo is going to be with a woman named Joan Schrum, and that one's tomorrow. And you can check email or Facebook posting for the details on that one. And she's, her husband died last, I think it was August or September. And she's been struggling with the grieving. She's been having trouble for exactly this very reason that I'm just describing. So we're going to educate her and guide her through a session. It'll be different than this one. And in her particular case, there may be it's very common when people are dealing with grief that the intensity of the pain is significant. And it can tend to push people over into the other form of dealing with emotions that people have, which is to get overwhelmed by it and cry. Okay?
Yeah.
So we have a special way of dealing with that, and I'll be, if it's needed, I'll be showing her in that particular. Yeah. So we can see, thank you so much, Dezi, for this. This issue is now completely resolved. Yes. There's something else we need to do about it? No. The nice thing about working this way is that when the energy is gone, we don't usually need any kind of what to do about it, because you're now already in a natural state of just being who you truly are. Okay? And if you think of it, let's challenge it in another way, just for the interest of doing this. If you think about for a moment that you don't know whether you're going to continue to be in the job that you're in or not. I mean, you have a kind of sense that maybe you're not. But
I'm not.
Yeah, the unknownness about it, when you think about that now, any feeling of anxiety or discomfort?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. There you go.
It doesn't matter. It's just the next phase will appear. You know, that's it. There's no. That's what this feels like. It's like, I can breathe. It'll all unfold how it needs to.
Fantastic. Very, very good. Congratulations. Excellent work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so completely welcome. You can see from this that there's a need for everyone to develop a much higher degree of emotional competence.
Yeah.
And at a future time, I'm going to explain about, I've had a recent, this whole field of inner greatness optimizing, we used to call it human software engineering, debugging and upgrading our inner human software. Yeah. The name is not so important, but the important thing is that this whole field has been evolving over the years. I've been working on this for now over 20 years. And in the last year, developed something very special that's accelerating people's ability to become emotionally competent, like I was been sort of wishing and dreaming for several years, and I finally discovered how to do that. And it's a special program of using these techniques in a particular way. It's called the Freedom Practice. And it's a way of doing the techniques on a much more regular basis. And I'll describe that in another webinar at some point to let people know. And then that whole training and an ongoing program in that is going to be available. I'm actually working on the online version of that training now. Okay. One other thing I wanted to make you aware of, if you haven't been aware of it already, is that we have an app for smartphones, both Apple and Android platforms. It's called Awaken Your Inner Greatness. And that app is a special simple, easy user interface. You just swipe to the right on anywhere on the screen, and you hear the next audio instruction for doing the technique, and then you do it, and in your own timing, when you're finished with that experience, you just swipe it again. And this interface is designed so you can keep your eyes closed and just keep swiping through the, and you can go backwards, you can stop and resume, you can hear the last one. It's very, very cool. And so this is available in both the Apple and Android app stores, and you can get that and use it. It also has links in it that tie to our membership website. And you can, right in the app, you can join the website with a free membership. And all this is, the app and the membership are free. And you join the website, and then there's also a menu in the app of how to use the app for resolving depression, anxiety, grief, heartbreak, nightmares, all the kind of stuff that we're dealing with in these demos, okay? Mm-hmm. And you can just go to the webpage where it tells you exactly the instructions of how to use the app to resolve that particular issue. So I encourage everyone to get it. I'll post there's a link to it right on our Inner Greatness Global Facebook page. So if you go to Inner Greatness Global Facebook page, you'll find it, or you can just go to the App Store and do a search on Awaken Your Inner Greatness, and you'll find it. It's the only app by that name. So again, thank you, Dezi, for volunteering.
Thank you, Tom. That was great.
Welcome. My pleasure. Thanks to all of you who came and observed and watching the session. And I'll be sending out through email. Oh, there's a Chris is saying
Awesome work,
awesome
Dezi.
work,
Thanks,
Desi.
Chris. It was the thing I love about this too is it's so simple, it's elegant, there's no drama or anything. It's just focus on the energy and it dissolves itself.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Desi, because, you know, when people are working with things like grief or PTSD or trauma addictions, counselors, therapists, coaches, people who work with these kind of people, they have a tendency to get what's called secondary PTSD, or what's
Yeah.
called compassion fatigue. You know, like it wears them out because they're listening to all these stories, and you know, and the beautiful thing about inner greatness optimizing is we don't have to do that.
No.
We don't even have to know we don't even have to know the details of the experience of the person. In fact, we don't even have to know anything about it. If that person can feel the energy and resolve it with the techniques, when the problem's gone, we don't care about the cognitive part of it anymore. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's completely unimportant.
And
Very,
that was great about this was that, you know, you didn't ask me, what were you feeling or what it was like none of that. It was just, okay, I can feel here, I can feel here. And then that was it. There was no need to know what it was or anything.
that's right. And you see, most people approach emotional problems at the level of the content.
Hmm.
But the level of the content is the circumstances, which are in most cases actually long gone.
Yeah.
Or haven't happened because they're not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you focus on the content, and this is what most people are deeply conditioned to do, and what the whole psychological community basically does, is called cognitive therapy. It's approaching it with the mind.
Hmm.
But the beautiful insight that gives the power to inner greatness optimizing, IGO, we now call it, is shifting from the content to the energy. Because it's the energy that gives life to the problem.
Hmm.
It's what gives it that sensation and the discomfort that's being created. And when the energy is gone, just as you're experiencing now, the whole problem's gone.
Yeah.
And you could care less why you had it or
Okay.
what it, anything like that. The whole cognitive part of it becomes completely, it just sort of flattens out, becomes completely unimportant.
Yeah.
So it's great. This is like this development of this, I have to say, without any ego involved, this is a major breakthrough for the field of helping people develop true emotional competence. This is going to redefine emotional competence. The current model of what's called emotional competence is learning how to manage the emotions with the mind. Okay? Now, there's some benefit to that. It's somewhat helpful, but it doesn't hold a candle to inner greatness optimizing. Because when the energy of the emotion is truly gone, you don't have to use your mind to figure out what's going on and manage it. There's nothing to manage anymore. The problem's gone.
The mind can just go back to doing nothing, which is
So yeah, to enjoying the nice, practical, and intuitive thoughts that the mind naturally does.
yeah.
So great. So I'll tell you more about the freedom practice in some other time. But thank you again. This concludes our session. Great job. And very best wishes to everyone. Please join me for some of the other ones. They'll be different. Each one will be different. And there'll be different things that you will learn by observing them. So thank you again for joining me. All the best to everyone. Thank you again, Dezi.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.